right, well, welcome everybody. I want to congratulate you for getting through the front doors into this building. Really appreciate your being here today. We're here to talk about how Microsoft manages employee and executive communications with AI. So if you're here for something else, you are in the wrong room. All right, so who are we talking to you today? I've got John Cirone, our Senior Director of Employee Executive Comms. John's going to start out and talk to us really about how Microsoft communicates with our employees using tools like Viva Engage and how we use AI to accomplish that. And then I am Jason Mayans, VP of Product from the Viva Engage team. I'll close out the second half. I'll be talking about capabilities that we've released soon and what's coming next. So with that, I'll have John take it away. Thanks, John.
All right, thanks, Jason. Hi, I'm John Cirone. I manage Microsoft's GEEK function, which stands for Global Executive and Employee Communications. I've been at Microsoft for 34.5 years, so that's quite a long time. It's about 2/3 of Microsoft's overall sort of life. And in that time, I've seen lots of change at the company, certainly. Right? I started there before there was an internet, before cell phones, right before virtual meetings. This is back in the days of like conference rooms and landlines and talking in person. And so I have seen change, of course, over 35 years. And in the communication space, I've seen a lot of change. Now, sometimes change takes place over a long time frame like that. Sometimes change is very sort of quick and sort of overnight. And we'll talk about some of our, I think, our change moments in the course of evolving Microsoft's approach to communications. And then I think we'll end on sort of Viva Engage and the role that it plays in our comms transformation. So this first slide here shows you kind of a sort of the scale of Microsoft, right? We're a 200,000 person global organization. We have 26,000 people managers. We have about 400 senior leaders, our executive staff members, and of course our CEO and his directs. And the reason why I start there in the comm space in particular is because when you look at the last decade at Microsoft, kind of sort of Steve Ballmer's last year as CEO in 2013 compared to today, and you asked employees of all the channels that you use to get information, right, what channels have the most impact on you? And a decade ago, it was a real mixture of external and internal. And in fact, a decade ago, it was external, things like press coverage and the stock price and analyst reports and family and friends that were driving a lot of those perceptions. Now, that's true for any company where you've got the mixture of external and internal. You never want external to be driving your internal sort of narrative and perceptions. So by contrast, today, we feel much better. On the right part of the slide, you're seeing today's list. And the top 7 channels are internal, and they're led by the voices of those 400 senior leaders, our CEO, of course, and those 26,000 people managers. So when you just sort of stop there and look at that one singular data point, and you sort of examine Microsoft's, or at least we did, looked internally and said, are we actually staffed and resourced and aligned behind those people that are driving that impact? The reality was we were not. Right? We did a lot of internal comms through things like our company meeting, our intranet, email, our all-hands meetings, but we were not leveraging those leader and manager voices to drive change. So back in 2018, this is pre-pandemic, we created what my team runs now, which is called the GEEK community, right, which is Global Executive and Employee Communications. These are all the people at Microsoft that together do internal and external comm support for those 400 senior leaders. And so by having them all in one community, think of that as like a center of excellence. We're able to sort of scale change the company quickly through our 400 senior leaders, right? Those folks are not in my single team. They're spread across geographies and organizations and leaders, but they're all part of one single community. And so today, when you try and drive change at scale at the company, that sort of scale is incredibly important and influential in terms of driving that change. Now, what's also true today is that we're living in an environment that's very low trust, right? I think we all feel that in our politics, in our institutions, in our leaders, and sort of all parts of our lives. Not a great feeling, really. And so when you are in a relationship that has a lot of trust. That's an incredibly powerful and useful tool from a change perspective. And for all the folks that are here in person today or that are online, I suspect many of you are IT managers or your comms leads. Your job really is to drive change in your organizations. And so we are very focused on how do you build that trust with leaders and employees to drive that change. And so we have lots of internal Microsoft data, of course. We love our data. And when you unpack that data and look at the leaders that have the best scores for the best employee engagement, the best communications, it is leaders who do these 4 things well, right? They're building trust and being authentic. They are creating opportunities to build connection with their hybrid teams. They drive clarity around their strategy, and they are thought leaders. And of those 4 things, that first one, trust, is by far the most important driver. And every year for the last 4 years, it only increases in its importance, right? So trust proves to be a very magical and important ingredient in driving change and driving engagement with employees and leaders. So when we look at Microsoft kind of broadly and look at our comms model, you could argue that at Microsoft for years we sat in that very first box, right? Very traditional. Lots of tops-down communications. These are things like your company meeting, your all-company emails, your intranet, tools that are very good at information dissemination. Our goal is not to be in the 4 box. That would be an environment that's totally open. Everything would be sort of community-driven, inclusive, interactive, et cetera. I think we are sort of right in the middle of 2 and 3, and we actually feel quite good being in that position, because that position allows us to sort of embrace conversation, embrace dialogue, but also manage the risk for the company. And that's incredibly important. I think when Satya became CEO back in 2014, one of the very first things he said to employees in our very first town hall was, I want to change the soul of Microsoft. And to change the soul of Microsoft requires culture change, and culture change takes many, many years. And that also requires a conversation with all of you, right? It can't happen because I get up here on stage and I announce a new list of 4 priorities or a new initiative. It has to happen through dialogue and and listening and kind of responding at scale. And that's been our journey for the last decade, is how do you create an environment that embraces change through dialogue and through listening. And so when you believe in the importance of that, you have to also believe in the importance of listening. And so as important as the tools we use now are, listening is also a key piece of this. And so this is a 1-slide view of our listening system. You can see here on the left part of the slide are more of your traditional kind of HR-led surveys, more of your ambient tools that collect a lot of sort of data that's quantitative and that's useful for teams to measure their org health. And on the right part of the slide is more of the ambient stuff, all the social listening that we do across platforms like Viva Engage or third-party tools like Blind or Glassdoor. And so the power of all this data is that it helps to inform a leader from a comms perspective, right? You can demonstrate that you are listening at scale. And so when we sort of step back today and then ask the question to employees again, what are the voices that matter the most, and what are the channels that have the most influence over you? The answer again is those 400 leaders, the CEO and managers. And from a tool perspective, it's tools like All Hands and events like AMAs, which are Ask Me Anything events, emails, and Viva Engage. And of those 4 tools, AMA events and Viva Engage are new in the last 3 years. And to be at the top of the list in that short of a time means that they're doing something well. And what they're doing well is they are sort of going after those trust-driving comms behaviors, right? They are listening, they are responding at scale, they are opening up a chance for dialogue and conversation. So Jason will get up here on stage in a minute and talk about sort of Viva Engage and the platform and sort of the role that it plays. Our goal was never to launch a new Microsoft tool. Our goal was to change the company and to do that through communications and to do that in a way that allowed for conversation, allowed us to listen and then respond accordingly. And that's what Viva Engage is really powerful at doing and why it's so effective for us. So let me give you a handful of examples of how we did that, right? Because there was a point in time 3 years ago when the company didn't use Engage and then wanted to try it out. And so we had to think about, like many of you, how do you drive adoption of a new tool in your organization? So these are some of the topics that are on employees' minds today. Things like AI and strategy, leadership and culture, job security, comp and ben. This is the mix of sort of the top sort of themes that employees want to hear about. And AI remains, and it has been for a while, the #1 theme internally. So when we think about using Engage, we were thinking about how can we get the AI sort of transformation work to be more visible from a leadership perspective. And so, of course, you start with your leaders, right? We have Satya on Viva Engage. He posts probably about 2 times a month on average. This is a post he made back in August. It was a few Copilot prompts. You can see here it was seen by almost the entire organization. It had 2,251 engagements. That's a huge number of people who are commenting and sharing and reacting and sort of taking part in a conversation in a way that feels much more community-driven, interactive, and connected than it would have had it been an email where you wouldn't have seen any of that kind of response and reaction. So just if you're trying to drive adoption of the tool, just getting your leaders on the platform has proved to be a very important part of our strategy. Secondly, it's really sort of how do you sort of cross that world from external to internal? Earnings is a big moment for the company every quarter, like all of your companies. It drives a lot of news for Microsoft, certainly. Judson, who is this morning's keynote, often posts on LinkedIn every quarter at earnings, talking about how customers are embracing AI transformation. That's a LinkedIn post. In this case, we just took that post and had him share that post on Viva Engage. He also talked about how employees could then share that on social through the Microsoft feed to their own social networks. And so the idea of employees being advocates was part of this post. And so him simply sharing internally was a way to elevate that same story that he was already sharing with customers and partners across the world on LinkedIn. So a nice blending of kind of your internal and your external. Certainly events, I mentioned that AMAs and all hands are a big part of our comms portfolio. We do tons of all hands and AMAs throughout the year. Every leader runs some kind of mix of those two things. Viva Engage is great at running events, right? It's a super useful platform to not only watch the webcast, it also allows for reactions and questions and Q&A and chat and all those things that make an event virtually feel more engaging and more interactive. And that's all part of the Engage platform. And in our case, most of our events are hybrid now, and a large part of your audience is watching either live or on demand virtually. So having that super connected experience online, both before, during, and after the event, proves to be really key. We also run campaigns on Engage, right? We do lots of campaigns at Microsoft. I'm sure many of you do too. Things like your giving campaign or your values campaign. Microsoft turned 50 years old this year, a big company milestone. We ran a Change Makers campaign across 50 change-making moments on the 50 days prior to our April 4th anniversary. We did that on Viva Engage over the course of those 8 or 9 weeks. We had leaders sort of sharing many of those posts or making those posts directly. It reached almost the entire company with a 90% sort of net positivity rate. So super strong engagement, a sustained campaign over time on the lead up to an all-company event that was both internal and external for the company. And then lastly here, I think, is the sort of, I'll start where I kind of began, which is AI. That is sort of the biggest piece of news at the company. It is sort of foundational to the company's transformation and change and overall strategy. And employees want to hear about AI, both from a skilling perspective and a news perspective. So it is the most engaged content on this platform. You can see here a couple of screenshots. This is a mixture of like a news moment from 𝗦𝗲𝗲, one of our AI leaders, and also an MSIT sort of Copilot skilling motion as well, both on Viva Engage. These kinds of posts generate a ton of positive sentiment, typically, and engagement, which is incredibly important for both the platform to be useful, but also to drive the change that you're trying to drive. And I'll kind of end here where I started, which is that comms and IT are functions that really are driving change in organizations. And that's, we don't do comms for the hell of it, we do comms to make meaningful change. And so when you step back and look at the news that we're driving on a platform like this, You can also look at what is that information and news doing. And in this case, what you're seeing here is the story of kind of how usage and adoption of AI creates employees that have better overall experiences at work. They're thriving more, they're more productive, and they're learning more. And so when we see here sort of that as employees begin to use AI, initially at the beginning in a light way, sort of trying things out, as the usage increases, the benefits accumulate, and you can see here on the last kind of column, when your usage reaches a certain level, the benefits begin to multiply. Right? And that's seen across our most meaningful benchmarks at work about meaningful work across innovation and across thriving. So again, change takes time. Change is important. We do all this to drive change, and AI is a critical part of making this accelerate and work for Microsoft. So Jason's here now to talk about the product and the roadmap and the plans ahead.
All right, thank you, John. Everybody give John a clap. John loves positive reinforcement, really appreciates it. So John really talked about the why and how of how to really communicate with your employees. I'm going to talk about the what. And as I get started, I think it's always kind of important to restate what is Viva Engage. And we can break this down into kind of 4 areas. For employees, Viva Engage is a place for them to share their experiences, their knowledge, and their expertise. For corporate communicators and leaders, it's a place to engage your employees at scale and reach them wherever they are. In communities, employees can gather together around common interests across divisions and geographies to work together. And lastly, Engage is a great place to share knowledge, to ask questions and build knowledge that accrues to your AI knowledge base. And this experience is not just, a Viva Engage dedicated web and mobile experience, which of course does exist, but also is available in the flow of work, integrated into SharePoint, integrated into Outlook, and most importantly, in Teams. First, though, before we get too far in, I want to start by thanking you and really celebrate the momentum that we have seen over the last year. So over this last year, we welcomed a new wave of customers to Engage, all bringing new energy and ideas and stories. And we're seeing more organizations than ever activate their employees. So a couple of stats here. There are 264 million unique connections created in Engage each week. So a connection is when one person has some sort of interaction with another person. And these are connections that are across silos, across departments, across geographies within organizations. And in the last month, 1.9 billion threads viewed on Viva Engage. So our community is growing, but it's not just about the numbers, it's about impact. Every customer, every new community, every employee, every story shared is a sign that we're moving in the right direction. So thank you for being part of this journey with us, and welcome to all of our newest customers. So let's talk about what's new and what's next. So building on what John presented, when employees feel heard, trust accelerates. However, leaders and comms are often overwhelmed by fragmented and noisy feedback. AI and data can help them listen deeply and act quickly, turning chaos into clarity. So one tool for doing that is our AI-powered analytics surface. This helps show sentiment and themes, so leaders and comms don't just see the data, they understand what matters most and what's on employees' minds. So let me walk you through this experience. So at the top, our network analytics starts with an activation and retention funnel to show you how many people are enabled, have been activated, reached, and engaged on the platform. And there's also a benchmark to show you how you compare in engagement to organizations of a similar size. Scrolling down, I can see the types of engagements that my users are having and through what interface. Web, Teams, and Outlook, and how they're interacting. As you keep going, you'll see sentiment and theming to give you deeper insight into what people are talking about. Conversations are grouped into trending themes, and you can see what's driving sentiment, what might need attention. You can see summaries of those themes, how employees feel about it, conversations that relate to those themes, and of course you can drill in and see analytics on those individual conversations. And then lastly, a leader dashboard shows the frequent contributors and gives you a clear view of the audience, top posts, and engagement patterns, so you can work with your leaders to drive engagement. All right, so using organizational data in Microsoft 365, you can now drill down and segment your analytics even further. So you can choose to filter your data by a number of different attributes. So you can, for example, set a custom date range. So I can go here and say, I'm looking for a particular time period from the end of April through May here that I'm interested in getting more detailed analytics. You can filter by country. So it'll show you like the list of the countries, how many people are in each country. I can select a few and continue. Department, select departments that I want to focus on within my organization. And all this organizational data, by the way, can be imported via connectors from Workday and SuccessFactors. So that's where it comes from. And things like job title, too, so I can select job titles. And then, of course, when I apply that, I'm going to get a filtered down view of the analytics that's applying to that date range and that segment that I selected. All right, so reaching the right audience is critical as a communicator or a leader, and using those same attributes I was just talking about, you'll be able to precisely target leader storyline announcements. So here I'm writing a post on my storyline that is specific to our North America employees, and I want to make sure that they receive it. So to do that, I click on the announcement button, and I can customize the announcement behavior and set a particular target I want to send this announcement to. So I go again to create a filter. In this case, I can select the countries that I want to send this to, US and Mexico. I can hit apply. I can choose to do this in Teams and email for the actual notification. And then when I post it, my American and Mexican employees receive this announcement notification, getting the relevant news. Now, in that example, an announcement across Mexico and the US, it would have been great to actually create a customized version for both English and Spanish. Well, with multi-language posting, you can now reach every audience, no matter what language they speak. And this isn't just auto-translation. It's about showing that as a leader or a communicator, you're showing respect and that you've taken the time to ensure that every employee gets the message in the way that works best for them. So let me show this real quick. So, Engage can already translate posts on demand, but sometimes you want more control over that. So here I'm starting with an English post. I can go and I can add an attachment. I've got an image that I've created for this post. And I decide, I want another customized version of this. So I'm going to add, you can see all the languages we support here, but I'm going to go ahead and add Japanese as another language on here. So I'll have two versions of this post. I'll go ahead and just paste in the Japanese text. And you can also set a custom image for each language. So, images often have words in them, so obviously I want the image with the Japanese text in that image. And so then when I post that, my English users get to see my English message. My Japanese users, of course, are going to see my Japanese message, and everybody else still gets the option to auto-translate it into whatever language they're set as. Now, one of the challenges we hear from leaders and communicators when choosing a platform like Engage is, how do we balance the rewards of building trust and open communication with the risks that often also come with open communication? And communicators say, hey, I don't have the time to moderate and stay on top of every conversation that's happening. So with AI-based theme moderation, which is completely under your control, Engage can work with you to manage this risk. So in our communications dashboard, Admins can set up AI themes to monitor discussions and automatically block or mute content that's sensitive. So here I'm going to create one that is called bullying. So it's going to detect if a content is considered bullying. And I can choose to auto-mute it. That means it won't show up in our feeds and in our digest emails. Or I could also just choose, hey, I just want to block this content altogether and prevent it from being posted. And then I can choose what communities that this applies to. Or if I want, I can apply this across my entire network. So I'm setting up this kind of blocking action now based on bullying. And so if I switch to a user view and I come in and I write a post, here I'm going to write something that I think is a bit accusatory, and I'm going to try to post that. You're going to see that it's going to give me a little message in response, and that post is not going to go through. But if I go ahead and change that to something a little more positive, or it doesn't fit the bullying theme at least, I can post that, and of course that it goes through. So this advanced moderation can also be used to help you discover and highlight specific content on your network. So if I want to highlight, let's say when users or leaders are demonstrating trust, I have a theme here called leader trust and authenticity. I can see conversations related to that, see the matching conversations, and then maybe I want to share this or highlight it in a newsletter. So you can see how you can use this AI theme moderation both to address risk, but also to highlight the kinds of behavior that you want to see on the network. All right. So trust doesn't just grow in one-way announcements. It really grows in conversations. And conversations happen in communities. Communities bring leadership and knowledge into the flow of work, particularly when accessed via Teams. And then Copilot makes those conversations scalable and available as organizational knowledge that will ground your AI. So let's talk through all that. First thing, all public Engage content is available in Copilot responses, making knowledge accessible and actionable for every employee. So the conversations, the answers and questions, events that you have in Engage. If a user asks a question in Microsoft 365 Copilot and there's relevant information there, it will return it in a Copilot response. So what does that look like? So here, I'm going to ask M365 Copilot for advice on how to do fully automated AI. So I'm going to run this, and it's going to come back with a response. And in that response, you're going to see references, little tags there, with an Engage icon to conversations that were actually happening in Engage. I didn't tell Microsoft 365 Copilot necessarily to look at Engage, but it found that relevant content. And then if you want to explore that source, you can mouse over, you can click on that and see the reference conversation. So in this way, those conversations that you're encouraging in Engage, the knowledge that you're building there actually contributes and helps up-level your entire organization's AI knowledge base. All right. In addition to accessing Engage content in Microsoft 365 Copilot, Engage itself, of course, has an integrated Copilot experience tailored to Engage. So let me show you how Copilot Engage can help you pinpoint information, catch up on updates, and draft posts more quickly. So I need to find a recent post here on employee rewards from Amanda. So I'm going to go select and look for the rewards post from Amanda. I'm going to run that. And when I do, it's going to find that very specific post, a summary of it. And if I want to click through, I can read the full thing. Now, something else that Copilot lets me do is catch up. I've been away. I want to catch up on some of the latest things in my network. So I ask it to help me catch up. Gives me a nice summary of relevant content, recent conversations I may be interested in. Helps me catch up. Third, I want to write a post for my team based on a recent meeting. So the Engage Copilot has access to all of your Microsoft 365 content. So here I'm writing a post based on meeting notes that I took during a Teams meeting. So I ask it to draft it based on those Teams notes. You can see this post, a real easy way to share this back with my team. I can then click, I can add this to my post, hopefully customize it a little before I send it out. But with Copilot, this posting on Engage can be more about sharing and engaging in conversation and leading that effort versus worrying about exactly how do I write and share things and get started. All right. Now, with community agents available in public preview now, you get a virtual community member to help you answer questions and engage in conversation, saving time, especially on those repetitive questions. So the agent can be grounded in community questions and SharePoint libraries. So responses are rooted in your content, not just generic results. So let me show you how this works. So here, I've got a product sales community to help answer questions from our sales force about our product. I want to add an agent. I want to say I want to approve answers from the agent before they get posted. So you can either do it automatically or you can ask to approve them before they get posted to add trust. I can also go and add a SharePoint site that I might want to ground this agent in to have additional information that the agent can base its answers off of. So if I go ahead and save that, I can see now that the agent notification there has some new answers for me to review as a community expert. So I can scroll down, see the answer that it created, and I can even view kind of the deep reasoning process that it went through to build this answer, to give me confidence, was this right or not? Did it look at the right things? If I like this one, great, I'll approve it. It'll get posted automatically to the community, and now everybody in the community gets the benefit of that answer. If it's not quite right, I can edit it. I can go in and I can add some additional clarifying information. And again, post that back to the community, and therefore really correcting and updating your company's knowledge base. All right, so another way to build community and encourage dialogue and participation is by hosting events. So for years, customers have used live events in Engage to host broadcast events such as company town halls. And now we're expanding this so that you can create any type of event from any community or storyline. So this is entering private preview, and we expect to release it to customers in early 2026. So what does this look like exactly? So we're upgrading community events we're upgrading live events to community broadcasts. The most important upgrades here are native support for Teams Town Hall production, video optimization using eCDNs, and an event feed that supports Q&A, discussion, and moderation options. And an important distinction about these broadcast events is that a producer controls, completely what gets seen in the event. They switch between the sources and determine what attendees see. And there's two ways to produce such a broadcast. The first is to have a production studio that's broadcast in the studio, streams it via RTMP into Teams Town Hall to the viewers. Or you can use Teams itself. So there's a Teams production studio, and this allows you to produce high-quality broadcasts without the cost and the overhead of a full studio. And presenters can still share their camera and mic and screen just like in a meeting, with producers controlling what is actually active in the event at that time and how it's laid out. And these broadcasts can support up to 100,000 viewers of a real-time event with Teams Premium. So we're also enabling you now to host any meeting in a community. So these are just regular Teams meetings, everything you're familiar with within the context of a community. And like Teams meetings, community meetings can have up to 1,000 participants with chat, camera, mic, screen sharing. And organizers still have the regular controls that exist there in a Teams meeting. And these can be augmented as well with questions and answers and moderated processes from Engage as well. All right. Lastly, you can host an event with no video experience. So if you want to do like a Ask Me Anything type event, if you've been around this product space for a long time, some of you may have been familiar with Yam Jams from the past, this is a way to just let your employees ask questions over some time period and get those answers that they're looking for. And then all of these event types can be hosted from a community or from within a storyline. So I'm going to show you what this looks like. I'm going to create a training meeting for our Copilot community to drive adoption. In the Events tab, I created to create one, and I set it, give it a title and description, and I can set it as a Teams meeting. So select that option, set it as a Teams meeting. I can also then go add a co-organizer. So if I want to add somebody else to help me out with this, I can do that here. And then here you're going to see all of the different options I have for interactivity on the meeting. Do I want to allow anonymous posts and questions? Do I want to require approval before everybody sees the questions? Depending on what type of meeting it is and kind of what I want to allow, got a wide range of options there in terms of interactivity. And you can change these later if you need to as well in the life cycle of the meeting. All right. So there's my event once it's created. Now, something else that, been a big ask, I'm really excited that we have this. If I go to the event page now as an attendee where the question has already been asked, one of the things that you can see is, yay, we've added an add to calendar button. It's been a big ask for us, but of course, as you would expect, you go to that, you can add this event to your calendar and have that registered in Outlook. Last thing, let's go to the event page as an attendee. Last thing here. Here I'm going to submit a question as an attendee. I'm going to go ahead and write a question, and this is a event that has moderation turned on. So when I submit that, it's actually not posted for everybody. It goes into the moderation queue. But then the organizer can go over and they see these queues, in review, published, dismissed. And they can click to publish this so everybody can see it. Or of course they could dismiss it as well. So these events in Engage really help you drive leadership and community engagement while customizing it to the level of interactivity that's appropriate for the purpose and the size of the event. Excuse me. So as we look ahead, one of the most important shifts in our strategy is the deep integration of the community's experience into teams. It's not just a technical integration, it's really a fundamental change in how leaders and employees connect, collaborate, share knowledge, and build trust in the flow of work. So with communities in teams, leadership, culture, conversation, can all be brought directly into the daily work experience, side by side in the new chats and channels experience. And teams can become the hub for all of your workplace communications. So let me show you how this will work. So here we have a Teams user, and on the left side, you'll see they're using the new chats and channels experience, now also with communities. So I can scroll down here, and I can check out the Contoso live community. If I click on that, I get a full community experience. But again, presented in a way that feels very familiar and integrated with the style of Teams. Visually matches. Now, that deserved a clap, right? Yeah, it's a clap. All right. So now I can organize my communities and chats together in the way I think about my work. So here I have a town hall grouping, and I've taken a community and a chat together because I'm helping to manage the town hall. So the chat is really about what our team is doing to manage that town hall, and the community, the CEO connection, is where that town hall is actually happening. If I type something in that chat and then, hey, I want to check something over in the community, I can do that right there. So I can organize communities, chats, channels, just logically, as it makes sense to me and the work that I'm trying to get done. All right. That will begin preview in the first quarter of next year. So looking forward to have all of you sign up and try this in January. So with that, now is really the time to start to prepare for this. Work with your team's admin to prepare for this preview. Be ready to communicate to stakeholders like leaders, community admins, corporate communicators. And just start planning about how will you leverage these capabilities to drive engagement, amplify leadership, foster community, and share knowledge. Our goal here is to make Teams the hub for all communications, empowering every employee to participate, share knowledge, and feel connected. And so in the future of workplace communication is collaborative, conversational, and powered by AI. All right. So many of you out there are admins, are unseen heroes, keeping everything running, and keeping communications safe, compliant, and predictable. So I want to share a little bit about what we have for you. First, excited to say we built a brand new admin experience, refreshed across the board to make it more intuitive, consistent, and reduces friction for common tasks. So very excited about the new experience. As well, some other changes. Notifications, email notifications. We've finally gotten rid, or are getting rid of the 𝗦𝗲𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀 domain. That is in progress. Woohoo! You'll see that change rolling out here over the next few months. Private content mode, we've added that back into this admin experience, so you as an admin can access private communities if you need to. Sensitivity labels, being able to apply MIP labels to communities for compliance and data protection, and really helping you to enforce retention, DLP, and access controls at scale. So overall, these updates are about making Engage easier to manage and more auditable, so you can support openness without compromising compliance or security. Many of you have told us you'd like your Engage experience to really match your company's brand and culture as a service that's delivered by you to your employees. And so we're introducing deeper company branding capabilities into Engage, logos and colors that you can choose that carry across both web and mobile, work on light mode and dark mode. And you can, of course, define even very specific custom colors. So, if you want to be Coca-Cola red or Home Depot orange, you can choose the right color for your brand. Segmentation is a capability that essentially creates separate buckets where communities, storyline, and discovery are scoped to a segment. And users in one segment of your tenant don't see content from users in another segment by default. So maybe you have different divisions, sub-companies, geographies that you need to separate for one reason or another. Well, the new segmentation capability will let you do that, but within a single tenant. So you can manage all of the policies as IT in one place and without the complexity of multiple tenants, but give a tailored employee experience for each of these kind of divisions and segments of your organization. So, everything you've seen here today is really just the beginning, and we are deeply invested in making employee trust operational, not just as a one-time initiative, but as a continuous evolution. And we're committed to helping you have two-way dialogue with your employees in a safe and productive way. We're here to support you on your AI adoption journey, helping to capture the tacit knowledge in your organization and enable Copilot to reason over it. And we're going to bring this to your employees where they work, making Teams a unified hub for all communications. Now, we're not just shipping a bunch of new features, we're really shaping the future of communications. And we're excited to have you as part of that journey. So, we are continuously investing in this product. These are some of the things that we've delivered in this last year. Huge list here. I want to call out a couple things. One is the Amplify and Engage integration, to help you send out communications to email and Engage at the same time through a unified interface. We've improved the delegate access capabilities, making it easier to set up and manage delegates. Earlier this year, in the spring, we shipped Storyline in Teams. So now you'll have your Storyline and your communities in Teams. Something else we've done, we've made some features that were previously part of our premium offering as part of Viva available to everybody. So some of the things like being able to do a scheduled and draft post, some of the Storyline header, AMA events, those are now available to all of our customers, not just the Viva customers. All right, and some of the things coming next over the next couple quarters. One thing I want to call out, and this has been a feedback from some of our new customers over the last year, is they felt like some of our things weren't quite right in terms of how communities were sorted by default when you go into them. They sort by default as only showing you the new conversations, and it sorts by the latest comment, basically. So we're changing that default. So the community feed sort order is sorted by new posts. You see all of the conversations in that community. And that's based on feedback that we've heard from many of you. We're investing in what I call smart notifications. This is really the ability to better target. Do I put a notification in Teams, or do I send it in email? Do I show it in Engage? Based on what that particular user is actually using. We are enhancing permissions for corp comms so we can have more discrete roles for corporate communicators with access to different parts of the administration without kind of having access to everything. So those are some of the things coming over the next couple months, and you can take this away. All right, so just to close this out, I want to mention our theater session on Thursday, Building Co-Pilot Engagement and Momentum with Community-Led Engagement. The other thing I just want to call out, in the spring, we will have the Viva Engage Masterclass. This is just an amazing way to go in depth and learn a ton about Engage. So I really encourage you to join that. We did this last year, had a ton of attendees. There's a class, actually, like a full more than hour session in each one of these topic areas. So for those of you that need to go deep, really want to encourage you to join this. So thank you, everybody. Appreciate your joining today. And John and I will make ourselves available in the back. Also, if anybody wants to talk about anything. And also, you can schedule a meeting with us through the meeting system here at Ignite. So thank you.